Of all the musical instrument families, few are as diverse as the clarinet family. Clarinets in almost every shape and size have been manufactured at some point in history, ranging from instruments over an octave above the standard B-flat clarinet to instruments that can reach over 3 octaves below. While many of these instruments are currently being manufactured, many of them are no longer available and for all intents and purposes can be considered obsolete. Some instruments, like the bass clarinet in A, are indeed rare, however they are still available from a few makers, so I'll not be including them on this list. With that being said, here are 8 members of the clarinet family that for all intents and purposes no longer exist. Clarinets in the key of B-flat, 1 octave above the standard B-flat clarinet, have existed at various points in history. Most recently, a company by the name of Callison manufactured instruments which they referred to as mini clarinets. These instruments were clarinets made of brass with Albert system keywork pitched 1 octave above the standard B-flat clarinet. Unfortunately, these instruments are very rare, and they were actually given out as gifts to a few high-profile customers, so there's not a lot of them around. One of the main reasons this clarinet was not very popular was due to the fact that because of its small size, it was very difficult to play for individuals with larger hands. Because of this, the instrument never really gained any popularity, and other than Callison, no other manufacturers really made this instrument in the 20th century. Or beyond, for that matter. In the late Baroque era, clarinets were commonly seen in the key of C and D. However, despite this, there were a few instruments that survived to the modern era that were actually pitched in the key of F, exactly 1 whole tone above the standard E-flat clarinet. While not much is known about these instruments, it is believed that they were used as replacements for trumpets in F. Unfortunately, this instrument never really gained any popularity and was quickly obsolete by the classical era. Interestingly enough, there are a few surviving instruments from the 19th century in the key of F that had the standard keywork of the time. Another notable example of a more recent clarinet in F is the O'Brien Primer clarinet, which was an instrument designed to help students learn the instrument. This clarinet was, of course, pitched in the key of F and had 6 keys, allowing it to play in 3 separate keys. Unfortunately, this instrument was not fully chromatic and therefore was not seen as more of a serious instrument. Other than this, there have been no other modern examples of the clarinet in F. Probably one of the strangest members of the clarinet family has to be the clarinet in B natural. To a modern clarinet player, an instrument in the key of B natural would seem almost useless. Yet, in the classical era, this instrument did have some popularity. In fact, Mozart wrote 2 of his operas to include parts for clarinet in B natural. Unfortunately, the instrument lived and died in the classical era, and no modern examples are found past this period. It should be noted, however, that many individuals claim to own clarinets in the B key natural. However, these instruments are not B natural clarinets. Most of these instruments are in fact clarinets that are in high pitch, which are about a quarter tone sharper than the standard B-flat clarinet. This means that with a slightly shorter barrel, these instruments actually play fairly well in tune in the key of B natural. However, they are not true B natural clarinets. Another member of the clarinet family pitched in an odd key is the clarinet in A-flat, 1 octave below the more well-known piccolo clarinet in A-flat. At least one piece of music was written for this instrument in the classical era, however the instrument never really gained any serious popularity, and by the end of the classical era was pretty much obsolete. Most of these instruments that do exist were actually clarinet d'amore and featured a bulbous bell along with a curved neck. Like the clarinet in A-flat, the Basset Horn in D is an instrument that's only really seen during the classical era. Once again, we have at least one piece of music that was believed to have been written for the instrument, and we also have a surviving example from the era. This one surviving instrument was made in the year 1770 and has a very unique square shape with a range to low C. Of all the instruments on this list, the bass clarinet and C is actually probably one of the most popular. This instrument was fairly popular in the 19th century, and many examples have survived to the modern era. In fact, the most recent example I could find is an instrument by Mollenhauer with a relatively advanced system of keywork and a range to low C. This instrument is shaped like the older bassoon-style bass clarinets that were more typical in the early 19th century. In fact, many early bass clarinets were pitched in the key of C and shaped like bassoons with a range to low B-flat, allowing them to play bassoon music. Eventually, however, these instruments would be replaced by the more modern bass clarinet in B-flat. The last two instruments on my list, the contralto clarinet in the key of F, also sometimes known as the contrabasset horn, and the contrabass clarinet in the key of C, I'm lumping together because they do both serve a similar purpose. It is said that these instruments were designed to replace the contrabassoon, which was not very good at the time. However, this may only be a myth. These instruments were somewhat popular in the 19th century, back when clarinets were more commonly pitched in the key of C and F. However, by the 20th century, these instruments died out in favor of the more modern contralto clarinet in E flat and contrabass clarinet in B flat. The earliest reference to a contrabass clarinet in C that I could find is an instrument known as the battyphone. This instrument was a bassoon-shaped contrabass clarinet in the key of C that had a basic system of cue work, allowing it to play somewhat chromatically. Unfortunately, this instrument did not catch on very well and had problems of its own, and eventually the more modern bass clarinet-shaped contrabass clarinet would take over.